Hello traders and welcome back to another market update. My name is Nick, and in today's video, as per usual, we are going to be taking a look at the currency market, looking for potential setups as well as doing our technical analysis on some of the major pairs. Taking a look here at EURUSD, we are going to draw in our trend line on this daily chart that we've been looking at for a while, and you can see currently price is testing. Right, you can see right here as price comes into this area, we are testing an area of resistance historically that is held very convincingly. So going forward, my bias here on euro dollar is that we could see some sort of bearish reaction here. But I think that the less likely scenario, but still possible scenario, is that if we do see a breakout to the upside, we could look for a technical bounce off of this trend line. Now on the downside, which I think is perhaps more likely, we could see some sort of rollover, maybe down to this recent structure low. Might be some trade ideas there for you if you play around. Look for some sort of confirmation if you like to trade on the lower time frames along this trend line. Could be a great little technical setup. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be GBP dollar. And what you can see here on this pair is if we scroll out and we look at the daily chart, you can see that the downtrend here is looking like it wants to continue. We did see some heavy selling on GBP pairs yesterday and the day before. Now currently testing this structural point right here, which is, if you look left, a significant level previously, right? You have this area here where price was a resistance point. You have this area here where you can see prices respected, as well as right here, right? And so this area here is likely going to be some sort of a bounce zone, right? We could see some sort of respect. And in fact, we did already see some sort of response to being in this area. The question will be, can we get a little bit more of a bounce here, or is this going to continue? And if so, where are we headed next? I think that the biggest perhaps point of interest would be, of course, this recent structure low. And if that breaks out, of course, we're looking at a longer term continuation to the downside on this overall bearish GBP trend that we have seen going on for quite some time. Let's go ahead and continue on to dollar yen, and taking a look at USD yen here. If we take a look at the daily chart, you can see that the overall trend on this one, as well as GBP dollar, is down pretty convincingly, but there is a counter trend that I wanted to point out, which is this trend here, right? So you can see that this is a counter trend that for the time being has been holding very well. And if we draw a trend line along the top, you can see there is kind of a wedge formation somewhat forming here, right? As price comes and bounces off of both of the highs and lows, respecting both directions. What that usually will tell us, guys, is that as this price continues to consolidate, there will likely be a breakout either up or either down, and there might be opportunities to trade along these retests if the market gives us some sort of follow-up or potential entry point on the retest. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be Brent Crude. Now you can see Brent Crude oil, we had been talking about on these market updates, we had been talking about the fact that there was this major gap, and price gapped all the way through and actually continued to push to the downside. We tested this area down here. I'll move over a little bit so you can see behind my camera. Right, we tested this structural low in this general region, right? Found support and have bounced off of it for the time being. I think that there's possibly more room to run on the long side here on oil. Checking how to see, how price bounces off of this resistance previously, we could see some sort of rally to the upside as price is looking pretty stretched to the downside without much of a pullback on this move to the downside. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. WTI crude, which looks pretty similar. If we back up here, you can see this area down here acting as a support for the time being, right? On the longer time frames, if we look at the daily chart, you can see it a little bit more clean, right? There is our level of support here. We've had respect back in this area, right? So it was not out of the question that this area could hold more so as a support level. And if we do start to see a rally on this particular pair, what we could take a look at is, we zoom in just a little bit further, let's talk about some potential levels that this could be headed to. I think one level definitely to consider is this one right here. You can see that this region acted as a level of resistance in this kind of channeling market right here, right? Price was respecting this high as a level of resistance. So if price can get a trend to the upside moving, that's a level I think would be interesting to watch, either as a potential target if you're a buyer and a potential sell zone if you are a seller. Let's take a look at gold here. And looking at gold, we can see on the daily chart that we are currently testing a trend line that we've been talking about here on the market updates. If we zoom in here, you can see this trend line currently being tested. So as price comes up into this area, the expected, at least my bias here, is that we will see some sort of respect of this downward trend line that we are currently seeing unfold, right? Price is starting to look like it may have the room to channel to the downside, as we have also talked about the fact that we put in a a regular head and shoulders pattern here, right? There's our left shoulder, our head, and our right shoulder, right? That's a lower high also. And so there might be the potential to see a further breakdown of gold. Now, if you're a gold seller, really what we want to see is a convincing break of this structure. Maybe we get a bounce off that thing there, the trend line, and then we see some sort of continuation. That might be a great little opportunity to look for trend trading continuation to the downside. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. USD Canadian here, if we take a look at the daily chart, relatively choppy on this particular pair. And what I wanted to point out is that a lot of times what you see on this pair currently is that there's good range trading or back and forth trading opportunities. And so with that, you can see that there are a couple zones here. My bias here on this area when talking about USDCAD is that we have seen sellers in this area very convincing. We've seen sellers here, and I think we may see some further continuation back down. And if we do, this area down here might be a great little opportunity to look for buys, right? When we're talking about a ranging market, really we're looking to trade the back and forth movements of the market. You can see dollar CAD hasn't really moved a whole bunch, but it has kind of gone back and forth. So might be some opportunities to look for if you're a range trading market trader. GBPCAD, let's take a look at this pair moving down in confluence with the rest of the GBP pairs, as GBP pairs have been selling off heavily recently. We do have some structure right here that we could be looking out for on GBPCAD. If you're a buyer, you could look for opportunities there, right? And then you also have a level down here. If price does continue, you have this area and you have this area to look for as potential lows. Now, similar to how pound dollar looked, you could see we had that kind of triple bottom low here. There's our triple bottom, low here that we had put in on GBPCAD. We might see a similar retest of that structure just as we saw on GBPUSD. Our last one is EURUSD, and let's take a look at the daily chart here. If we draw some fibs, we might have some opportunities to look for potential selling opportunities. You can see currently we are testing that 38.2% level retracement. And if we zoom in a little bit here, there's also this 61.8 that I'm potentially interested in as a sell zone. You can see that if we look left, there was a respected area right here. We got some sort of bounce right there. We found momentary support here before breaking through, retesting that area and continuing lower, right? So as Euro GBP rises here, if price decides to continue to get to that 61.8, that might be a nice little sell opportunity to look for confluence looking left. Of course, you want to look for some sort of confirmation and identify the trade for yourself. But with that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next time.